Good afternoon. My name is Enock Wekiya. I am a lab mentor working with the National Tuberculosis Reference Lab. I am going to talk about something new we haven't had today in the field of biobanking. And I'm sure when I say biobanking, sometimes called biorepository, it rings a bell. So we are looking on how we can implement the normal HuQAS into biobanking. You realize most of us at the facility, we store samples, right? But the way we store them, it's not in line how we implement QMS. Because many times QMS, we focus on quality and competence when we're providing patient results. But how about these samples we store for future use? How can we help them? How can QMS help them out? So it's a simple study. It won't take so long. Next slide. This is our introduction slide. We say improved biospecimen handling practices are important for research and medicine. And we know when we keep these samples very well, many researchers do come to base their finding on the samples we stored. But I can tell you, many times in medicine, therapeutics, and all that, also in preparation of reagents, even the PTs, which we are talking about here as HuQAS, these samples, they use the samples we keep in the biorepository. And they just need to classify them, then they give us to do the analysis right together. But also it has helped us. We've been hit by COVID, and many times these samples have been required for sequencing to further to tell which strains do we have. So it's because of biorepository that we keep these samples very well that we get to benefit from it. So great attention when it comes to HMS is needed when you are doing this biobanking bit. So at National Tuberculosis at NTRL, we are operated by SANAS, and therefore there's an existing QMS. But when it comes to biobanking, we never knew how its implementation was. So that's basically what we're looking at. How is the level of implementation of HMS to the samples we do? Okay. So we use the WHO SLIPTA checklist, looking at the role of system essentials. And also we did interviews, observations, and document reviews. This is basically focused on biobanking. We also had to retrieve isolates which were kept and subculture them to see if they are still viable, because you may keep samples, but by the time you need them, they are not viable. And I'm sure that happened many times in cases of COVID. They were positive, by the time they were requested for sequencing, they were not coming up. Okay? Maybe the virons had gone low, the virals were low that you couldn't pick for sequencing. So we also looked at the turnaround time. When someone comes and requests this sample, how long does it take to get these samples? But also the records associated with biobanking, the completeness of those records. These are our results. Using the SLIPTA checklist, the score was that on an average of 86% in terms of performance. And the 120 isolates, which we had to retrieve, it took us 3 minutes. The other thing is, when we subculture these isolates, using the QMS statistics, we check that observed and expected, what do we get? And all of the isolates, actually, they grew and came up in concordance with the original results. In terms of document review for completeness, we saw 71% the documents were complete as regards to biobanking. That's a graph looking at the different parameters, how they scored based on their SLIPTA checklist. In conclusion, there's some level of implementation of QMS in biobanking and NTRL, and it has proved to be relevant. I can tell you, even from the audience, we see the relevance of us keeping samples, but also implementing QMS. So the future plan is to include NTRL to include the implementation of ISO 9000, but also there is a particular requirement for biobanking, which is the TC, ISO TC 276. It has a component of biobanking. So if you are to do biobanking, you need to look at the standard. Lastly, QMS implementation is feasible in biobanking and in our labs. It doesn't matter the level of the laboratory. It can be at the SI level, but also it can be Health Center 4, Health Center 3. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Once again, my name is Obiagidi from IOM Nigeria. My question goes to Enoch. Um, I had just written down the topic and the presentation was over. I don't know if it was the time frame given to you, but I was really interested in that word, biobanking. But unfortunately, I didn't get I don't know if it's time constraint, but I didn't get so much from the presentation. I thought we were going to elaborate on the storage of specimens and which specimen is stored where, which way, and in what form, and how long.
What kind of database do you use to support the biobank?
Apologies, most of the narrative was the methodology, so I just picked a few things, but I can talk about them. Basically, these were TB isolates, and we store both the solid and the liquid. The solid one will store it on LG culture, then the liquid one we store on 25% glycol, and the storage temperature is minus 80 degrees. The topic, which you said you missed out, is implementation of QMS in biobanking. To Moses, about the database, by the time this was done, we were doing paper-based, but currently we have an in-house customized database to support biobanking. Thank you.